Third, I'd like to welcome Mr. Manning as a new commissioner to the table. So that's why you see Mr. Manning at the table.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Next order of business, certainly if you are able and willing, we'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. Thank you. If I can have roll call, please.
Ms. Othman,
Here.
Mr. Manning,
Here.
Ms. Brown,
Here.
Ms. Webster,
Here.
Mr. Butler.
Here.
Mr. McFadden.
Thank you, sir. Next is the approval of the agenda. Tonight, we have, public comments. We do have old business, and just so that the audience knows that there is no public hearing associated with that, that particular application, since we had one in January. Is that right? Other than that, do you have any additions to the agenda? Amendments or additions?
Move to approve the agenda.
Ms. Commissioner Butler. Need a second? Second. Okay. Ms. Brown. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, approval of the minutes of March 17th. You go by page, page one, is there any correction?
Under approval of minutes, it reads the board review, it should be the commission review.
Got that, Pam?
Got it.
Okay, anything else?
Under public comment, item B, at the end of the first sentence, it should be withhold approval, not hold approval.
Got that?
Got it.
Yeah. Anything else on page one? Page two.
The first targeted item, that sentence is confusing. I think it should read, should dugout road become vacated or the road become private. Administrative review by the zoning administrator and the fire district. So strike the line change on.
Do you see where she's at, Pam?
Got it.
Okay. Anything else on page two?
Well, Saugatuck Wilds Park exists, so, and it says future in a couple of places under H. That's all, if you wanted to strike future.
Page three. Page four. Page five. Page six. Okay, what's all, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting.
So moved.
Mr. Butler? Support. Ms. Osmond? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Thank you, Pam. All right, so with that, I will, our next agenda item is a public comment. And again, since we have no public hearing, if you're ready here for anything, please come forward. The public comments is just a request that speakers respect the 3-minute time limit for individual comments. The 5-minute time limit for an individual speaking on behalf of a group. We would appreciate if you would let us know what you are speaking on behalf. This is not a question and answer session. It is just the opportunity for you to voice your thoughts to the planning commission. So with that, I will open the public comments and I will go row by row and try to be somewhat organized. So if anybody in row one wishes and if you come up to the podium, please state your name and address.
Oops.
I'm Jim Hansen, 2907 63rd Street in Saugatuck Township. I'm here to talk about data centers. On first hearing about data centers, I knew it wasn't covered in our zoning chapter, so I was concerned that our township was not ready to deal with applications for this use. I supported the moratorium on applications till we had appropriate language to examine and approve them. What I read about the Saline Township experience emphasized to me that we need to write not just an adequate ordinance, but a model ordinance that will completely cover all the various concerns that this use presents to residents of the township. I met with our state rep, Joey Andrews, one of the co-sponsors of the 2024 data center legislation, which is PA 207 on 2024. I attended a public meeting Rep. Andrews held in St. Joe with representatives from various concerned parties, labor unions, township governments, environmental organizations, Attorney General Nessel, and a representative from Google. This use is going to change over time, so I think the township needs to be prepared to modify its data center ordinance over the coming years. A description of PA 207 is attached to my remarks. PA 207 has three major goals. One is to protect electrical ratepayers. The second is to protect our water resources. The third is to set up a framework where data centers developers can forge cooperative relationships with municipalities. The ordinance from Algoma Township that was in your packet seems to cover the data center use fairly well. Terms are defined and criteria for approval are laid out. Our township is a less likely site for data center development than other places for two reasons. Our township is smaller than the average township, so less land is available, and we have relatively limited water resources. Our land use zoning map and master plan indicate we should permit this use only in the I-1 industrial district. However, large-scale data centers require 200 to 600 acres. Undeveloped parcels or groups of parcels of that size where such use could be sited, for the most part, only exist in the A1 agricultural district. A zoning ordinance cannot prevent future township governments from enacting rezoning of such parcels, but our master plan can and does discourage the transformation of agricultural zones to industrial ones. PA 207 says uses of this type should be serviced by municipal water. I think that restriction should be in our ordinance as well. I have heard developers have proposed building wells and then transferring them over to municipal control to get around this restriction. Our ordinance should discourage that. We share our municipal water system with our two neighbor cities. Putting such a large use into our municipal water requirements is a shared decision, and our ordinance should acknowledge that. Finally, our ordinance needs to lay out a process the township can follow to enable community benefit agreements, developers augmenting township infrastructure. I look forward to participating as an interested citizen in the future discussions around the data center ordinance. I motor mouthed as much as I could. Chair.
Thank you very
Here are copies for them.
much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go, row two. Does anybody wish to speak to the planning commission? Row three. Row four. Please come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Terry Osborne. I am a full-time resident of Saugatuck Township, and I live at 3398 Gaslight Lane. My remarks tonight really are to formally register my concerns with the enclave development and voice my strong opinion that the Planning Commission here should vote against the plan that has been presented by Mr. Walker. And here's my reason. About a year and a half ago, I reviewed the master plan for Saugatuck Township, and that plan, really approved by the committee through public hearing process, and balances commercial development with the community's desire to retain the rural character of our area. Our representatives, you included, were either voted into office, hired, or volunteered under the assumption that they would uphold both the spirit and the letter of that plan until we could develop a new plan. Approving Mr. Walker's plan, at least in my opinion, would essentially create a dangerous precedent and gut the existing master plan in the following ways. Number one, ignore rules about setbacks and other aesthetics that we in our community have deemed important. I was at the last hearing, we talked a lot about landscaping and a lot of the trees and all that. Secondly, it would allow housing density that is 3 to 4 times what would be allowed under the current zoning for that property. Third, allow the destruction of a wetland and the cutting of many historic trees. And finally, and it was something that's very important to me, is it would dump 3 to 4 times the traffic into an already busy area. While our township struggles with how to manage the congestion and speed on Blue Star Highway that I enter every day. 3 people have been killed at my intersection alone in the last couple of years. So in my opinion, Mr. Walker is of course asking to change the zoning without the approval of the residents in a way which is in conflict to the master plan that all of us have approved. I have heard that the reason certain leaders support the developer's plan is that there may be financial help or some other aid in placing a new sewer line in that area and bringing sewage to it. But I have also heard that we are already looking at other ways to fund that sewer line that do not require us to make accommodations to the master plan. So, yes, we can and should add water, and I'm gonna pay taxes for that, I guarantee you, because they need that. But do we really need to change the zoning to do that? Personally, I looked at this, I see no clear benefit to this community that would require us to make these accommodations. In fact, these accommodations may cause harm. I would remind all of you who live here, and I know you do live here, that once this project is built, we're stuck with it. However, forever, and the developer just goes away and builds another project, but we still have that development and all the concerns that I've raised. I attended the last public meeting on this development. At that time, several residents who are here tonight stood in opposition to the developer's plan, and I'm adding my voice to theirs publicly. Please vote to uphold the current zoning as it stands and require the developer to reduce the size of this project to conform to that zoning that we all approved. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Could we see a clock, the clock? There's oftentimes a 3-minute timer.
Nick, I can raise my hand when you have a minute left. We
Okay,
don't have that right now.
don't have that? Okay. Well, I'm right around 3 minutes, so you'll excuse me if I go a little bit over, but I appreciate that. Good evening, my name is Nick Capoletti. I'm a property owner and business owner here in the township. First of all, who in the audience is not prepared to speak that is opposed to this?
Capoletti, you're addressing the commission, not the audience. No,
Maybe-
sir, please.
Okay, I hope you will ask that question though. I want to speak to something bigger than just this one application. There is a growing feeling in this community. You hear it in coffee shops, on the street, in conversations with our neighbors, that we are drifting into overdevelopment. And that's what's being approved what is being approved is no longer aligned with the spirit of the master plan. And I think people are starting to ask a very simple question. What kind of community do we want to create and live in? Does anyone enjoy driving by the massive toy barns on 135th that used to be prairies? Does anyone feel good about the clear cutting behind the Shell station? Does anyone think a small lake turning into a sand mining operation is the direction that we want to go and feel good about? Because those aren't isolated moments, they're signals. They're the result of decisions like the one in front of you tonight. Now, the master plan actually gives you a very clear guidance here. It calls for preserving the small town and rural character of this community. It calls for sustainable and orderly growth, not speculative overreach. It emphasizes environmental stewardship and protecting our natural resources. And it makes a point that I think really matters here tonight, that the pattern of development matters. So the question in front of you is simple. Is this project consistent with that pattern, or is it pushing beyond it? Because the existing pattern in the township is low density, spread out, and compatible with the land. That's the baseline the plan is built on and what these residents, our residents, have voted for. Now, bringing it back to the enclave application, a developer can come in here and buy a piece of land and hope to build 40 units. We all acknowledge that. But that's a gamble, not a guarantee. And it is not your job to make that gamble work. Your job is to decide whether what's in front of you is complete, compliant, and appropriate. And right now, there are real concerns. There's a formal letter from legal counsel stating that this application is incomplete and non-compliant. There were multiple residents speaking in opposition at the first meeting, none speaking in favor. There are at least a dozen people who have signed an objection to this that was dropped off here, and many more I know have objected in writing. And there has not been a single person that I've been to a meeting in favor of this besides the developer. So I want to ask for something very simple. If you choose to move this forward in any way, please directly address the concerns of the people have raised. Address the attorney's letter, address the questions about the completeness and compliance, address the concerns from residents about the overdevelopment in character, address the concerns about the alignment with the master plans, out of respect for us. Give those concerns the respect of a direct response, because again, this is not just about this one project. It's about whether the master plan still means something. It's about patterns we are setting, and ultimately, what is the legacy we're leaving? Thank you.
Well, again, Joe Novakoski, 3347 Gaslight Lane. You guys have a detailed letter for me, so I'm just gonna hit a few of the highlights. Thanks to Lenny for putting up with all my questions and emails and just working through and being diligent to get that information to me. I really appreciate that. Just starting with the parallel plan. So a parallel plan, for those that don't know, that you guys of course all know, but it sets the density, the base density. Everybody knows, or you guys all know, I disagree with using the table 630 to develop that plan. Set that to the side. There's still issues with the parallel plan that have been submitted. Most of the units don't meet the minimum size requirements, the minimum width requirement of buildings within the township. And then a couple of the buildings do not meet minimum square foot sizes. Also, there's the plan assumes public water and sewer available to the site, but there's not public sewer there at the moment. And there's no space in that plan to put a lift station. So that should be accounted for. So just that plan needs to get discounted to get down to the real parallel plan. There's good comments, I think, on the density bonus and Lene's review of the plan, and that's a discussion for you guys to have on what density bonus would be allowed. That's 10%, 20%, not the 25% as it's currently submitted. And then just the sewer, it's been mentioned, but the sewer is not a donation to the township. It's being sought out to fund that with tax incremental financing. So that is future tax revenue that's being leveraged to pay for that sewer. So just so everybody knows that's something that's in process. It's in the township ordinance. It's not like a secret. There's no conspiracy theory about that, but just know that that's happening. And that's part of the county has to approve that, and Saratoga Township has to approve that. I think there's a state component too. Although I'm no expert, when we get to the actual plan, I think there's some questions, and I think it's not a review letter and then versus the plan, different square footages or acreages of open space, and if that 25% minimum is allowed, which is a requirement for a PUD. And then a lot of issues with setbacks, the front, side, rear setbacks are all disregarded, and ask for a variance, and then the big one is the wetlands, where most of the units encroach on the wetland setback. Tree clearing. Again, in my letter, there's 30 landmark trees, 25 of those are clearly shown being removed. 3 more are going to have work grading within the critical root zone, so those will not survive. And then there's another one with a 12-inch water main within just a couple feet of it. You dig those down, you're going to kill that tree as well. And if you look at the grading plan, the close lines together means the grade's really steep. So if you picture yourself standing in those wetlands, the grade's going to go up at a 50% slope from the wetlands, and it'll kind of look like the Douglas volcano a little bit. So just if you could picture that. That's the grading plan. You can put it in 3D if you like, but last month there was 15 letters submitted in support of the enclave development. If you go through the detail, I believe maybe one of those is an actual resident of Saugatuck Township. The rest are not. So just be something to be aware of. And as others have said, the PUD is it's not something that you're entitled to do. It's an option that you guys can grant or not. So it's not like you have to, like Vic said, you have to make this work. It needs to follow the zoning. So that's all I'm asking for. Defense.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
We do have someone on Zoom that would like to ask.
Okay, I'm gonna get through all these first and then I'll do them last. Okay, is everybody else in row 4? I think that's row 5. Row 5, is there anybody who would like to speak? Row 6, right there. Do I have a row 7? Anybody else in the audience wish to speak? Okay, Pam, I will go to Zoom. Is there somebody on Zoom who wishes to speak?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Silas Cock. I'm from Varnum LLP, representing Capizzo Studios LLC, and Nick Cavaletti, at 3279 Blue Star Highway. My points here are going to be pretty brief, mainly because the points that I've raised here are going to be the same as those that we raised in the last meeting. And that itself is kind of part of the problem here, right? I mean, it's the same issues coming up again and again. The application is still not complete. Among other things, I could list them off. There's an insufficient amount of usable open space. There's nothing indicating how the open space is going to be protected by a permanent mechanism. The concept plan doesn't show how the open space areas are meant to be used. There's nothing indicating how the open space will be maintained. There's no responses to the zoning ordinance standards of approval. And there's no reasoning provided for why any requested waivers to site requirements should be approved. A lot of those items were pointed out to Mr. Walker in November of 2025 in a letter from the zoning administrator. And then some others were pointed out in the planning commission meeting that we had last regarding this project. Now, it's up to the applicant to bring a proposal that's both viable and appropriate before it advances it to the planning commission. It's not the planning commission's job to work it out for them in meetings. People in the township have busy lives, their time is valuable, and when we come out here and there's an application that's clearly incomplete, and this is after the applicant got repeated notice of items that were not in that, I think it's unfair to people in the township that it's even on the agenda in the first place. Without these items, the planning commission doesn't have the information that it needs to make an informed decision that respects the people of the township. And it can't make a decision on something that's incomplete, that frankly kind of flaunts the planning commission's own rules, where there's letters sent specifically indicating what's missing, and those are completely ignored. Additionally, it would be kind of an unmanageable precedent to set for the planning commission if it keeps reviewing applications that are incomplete, because it's kind of telling other people, yeah, the requirements are, they're not set in stone. You can just kind of throw together something and the planning commission will wave it through, because that's just how they function these days. Thankfully, at the last meeting, the planning commission said that they were going to postpone consideration of the application because it wasn't complete. I would say that situation has not changed, and so the decision by the planning commission should not either. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on Zoom who has their hand raised?
I am not seeing anything.
No?
No.
Wonderful. If there's nobody else, then I will close the public comments for this evening's meeting. So the next part of our agenda is the actual old business associated with the consideration of a proposed planned unit development rezoning. The enclave located at 6549 Old Allegan Road, parcel 20.010.03510, containing 9.13 acres of land currently zoned C1 and R1. Ms. Lene.
Okay, hello, commissioners. I just wanted to first call your attention to the updated public comment table we've put together that compiles all of the written comments that we've received to date. Several of the comment letters came in after the packet was issued. So this table includes the date that the comment was received, the name, address, a summary, and whether they support or not. I just want you to note the first one on page 1, it's a multi-signature community letter. So I believe there are about 10 individuals that signed that letter. Other letters here, they're in green, are letters from the applicant's attorney, our township manager, and the applicant's landscape architect. And then the other letters in the color order, the color, coding is just resident letters. I have copies of all of those letters if you would like them. And this matrix is available for the public record, so I just want to make sure that people know that we have them. With this planned unit development, as you heard earlier, the public hearing was held back in January. At that time, the applicant originally proposed 36 units. Within a combination of multifamily buildings, and two-family buildings and detached, single-family homes. This updated plan has 40 units total. There are 20, homes in the duplex buildings, and then an additional, I'm sorry, consisting of 20 detached single-family homes and 10 attached duplexes. I know that. There are 58 parking spaces, 50 parking spaces are required. A planned unit development is a two-step process. It's a recommendation by the planning commission to the township board that PUD is a rezoning. And often that rezoning is accompanied by a list of conditions or a rezoning ordinance that has requirements in it. After a PUD rezoning takes place, the applicant returns to planning commission with a detailed site plan review. So things like full design of utilities and streets and other site amenities are not fully ironed out until the applicant knows that they are able to do the type of development that they're looking to pursue. The applicant has provided a parallel plan for the project. We did review that parallel plan. I did also note the comment from one of the individuals tonight, which was sent in writing about the unit sizes. We do have a requirement in our R1 district for residential buildings that no building will be less than 24 feet, but that's for the R1 district. Part of this site is zone C1, the front part, and the part to the east is R1. So it's only one building in that R1 that I did note does not have that 20-foot dimension. Or 24-foot dimension. Well, there are 3 buildings over there that don't have 24 feet. If one of them is problematic based on where the setback lines are, I think the other 2 could. So that would need to be looked at. We do rely on table 6.30 for the PUD to establish the lot area setbacks and unit sizes for development. From that table, the applicant can provide a by right development, and then that by right development establishes the density that is then used for the new arrangement of how those units could be placed on the land. The applicant is looking to qualify for a density bonus of 25%. The parallel plan indicates a total of 32 units. And with that density bonus, they are looking to add an additional 8 units to achieve the 40 unit development. So a couple things that we will get to. We will talk about the density bonus, but we'll also talk about what a planned unit development is. A unit development has to achieve at least 2 recognizable and substantial benefits listed in our ordinance that would not be possible under the existing base zoning classification. So I think that's an important thing for you as a planning commission to think through is what are the benefits that the applicant is proposing here that they couldn't do with the C1 district or the R1 district? What is above and beyond a development that we might see here in the township? Some of these standards And I encourage you to think through them as well, would be like innovation and creativity and land use planning. Creative and imaginative approaches to the development with a mix of house types. Conservation and preservation of natural and cultural resources. Efficient use of land by facilitating well-designed arrangement of buildings, streets, utilities, and other features. Energy efficient buildings, dedication of open space to ensure connectivity of that open space with adjacent greenway corridors. And preservation of rural character and small town appeal. I mean, certainly some of these are subjective, right? And I think that as township residents, that is something for you to think through and talk about as a planning commission. We also took a look at the base zoning requirements and what is proposed in terms of future setbacks. So with traditional lots in this development, there would be a 50-foot setback from wetlands, there would be a front setback of 25 feet. There'd be side setbacks ranging from 5 to 15 feet and rear setbacks of 25 to 20 feet. The applicant is proposing a development where the setbacks are not as significant as what our underlying ordinance requires. In some cases, that setback to the wetland, for example, is around 0. That's right at the wetland with retaining walls. In other instances, there is more of a setback, more than that 0. In terms of the front yard, the applicant is proposing that the buildings be close to the back of the 66-foot road easement. That road easement provides ample space for future utilities, and the road placement as well as some of the driveways are within that easement. And then every unit maintains at least a 5-foot setback from imaginary property lines, so that results in a 10-foot separation between buildings. We did note that some of the parking is in the driveways, as I mentioned. Some of the units do have garages proposed. If there is a garage in the unit, then there's no ground floor bedroom. I did look at the calculation. I think these units range from about 720 square feet. Some of them might be a little larger. And the applicant has shared that the price range is between, I think, around $500,000 per unit. That works out to be about $650 a square foot. For open space, I had some questions from people about how open space is calculated. The way that I calculate open space is I take the overall lot area, so we have about 9.13 acres. 25% of that has to be open space, so I figure out what that amount is. Of that amount, only half of it can be encumbered by wetlands, drainage, steep slopes. The other half of that 25% has to be upland connected open space. So my main concern is getting that acreage of upland connected open space. And I did look at that. I worked on those calculations even with our township manager to make sure I had a second set of eyes on it. They did meet the 25%. I noted with parking, I mentioned earlier that some of the parking is gravel parking within the right of way. But there are parking spaces in the cul-de-sac, kind of at the head, if this looks like a stick figure. One of the concerns that I wanted to share is where that sidewalk is placed in the cul-de-sac. It is the parking spaces would be a vehicle would have to drive over the sidewalk and then park. And so the sidewalk location might be better placed at the back of the buildings, just for safety, pedestrian safety, if someone was backing out or pulling into those parking spaces. It's just a comment. I also noted that the sidewalk system within the development, which is required, is kind of segmented. It's, you're crossing the street many times. It didn't seem like a continuous sidewalk system. The other 2 points about sidewalks and pathways is that our ordinance not only requires sidewalk along the internal road network as a baseline requirement, it's also required on Old Allegan and Blue Star Highway. I didn't see sidewalks shown on the plans on those roadways. I understand that our preference is to have a pathway on the south side of Old Allegan because it better connects with our park. That's on Old Allegan. And I believe that that's something that is in discussion with the applicant and our township about that pathway and that connectivity. Nevertheless, I just want you to know that it would normally be required. And the sidewalk within the development is already required. It's not something above and beyond. And we are not shown on the plans the sidewalk on Blue Star. So whatever happens, we need to have that sidewalk shown and provided and built by the. In terms of the density bonus, we have standards for qualifying for that bonus. Certainly, this is something that is up for discussion. Number one is for every item that the applicant achieves, they can be granted up to 10% per item with a cap of a total of 25%. Providing public amenities such as playgrounds, picnic facilities, or community centers. I did not see that that was met. Including a variety of housing types with a range of price points. Certainly we have single family and attached duplex. However, the range of price point is, they're all around $500,000. So I didn't feel like that was met. Again, this is something for you as a planning commission to discuss. I'm just responding to the material that was provided. Number three, providing paths, trails, greenways, or other pedestrian and non-motorized transportation facilities accessible to the public and connected to or creating a network of trails throughout the community. I believe this is met. I think it can go either way. They are proposing that this internal pathway sidewalk is a public amenity. But I don't see that that sidewalk connection makes it all the way to Blue Star. That's a gated fire department access, that gravel path. So while I say that this is met, I think there is some a ways to go on that. Extending public sewer to priority areas or looping the public water system outside of the project area. They are extending public sewer, which would be paid for through tax increment financing, meaning that the developer is fronting the cost of that. And he is being repaid every year as property taxes are collected on the project. Providing open space above and beyond what is required for BUDs, that I did not see that that was met. Stormwater management on site that relies upon manufactured natural systems. I did not see bioswales or rain gardens. I do see drainage basins, but I understand that some of the drainage has not been designed or worked out yet. But I didn't find that that was met. And then there's an opportunity for other similar elements as determined by the planning commission. So I encourage you all to talk through that today. Other than that, I went through the site plan. I provided you with some initial comments already on that. Lighting, you know, if this were to move forward, if and when it moves forward, we will be getting a more detailed site plan. At that time, we would look at a full landscaping plan. We'd look at the full lighting plan. We'd look at detailed grading and drainage. So I think we can, you know, hold off on some of that detail at this time. We do have initial comments and reviews from our township engineer and the fire district. Those are in your packet. In terms of the residential building standards and the architecture, The applicant did provide renderings for what those buildings will look like. I think it's worth the planning commission talking through the house models and the differentiation in those models and whether those meet the intent of our ordinance. Some of the house models have porches or second floor decks. They have different window alignments, and I think that you'll need to weigh in on whether that represents the intent of the ordinance. If you do move forward with this request today, I want to make sure that we hear about short-term rentals. The ordinance in your packet does prohibit short-term rentals for this project if it were to move forward. The other topic, though, that is not addressed is accessory dwelling units. I don't believe that there would be enough space within the site to include more buildings, but I want to make sure that that is something that's talked about and addressed. If this project were to move forward, it would be a condominium, meaning that there wouldn't be lot lines for every unit. A person would own the airspace and the walls of the building. And everything around that, including what would typically be setbacks, would be conduit. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know I'm posing a lot of questions back to you all, but I think we can go through those together.
We can certainly, as we come forward, have that discussion, but the applicant is next. We'll have the applicant, if they want to speak to us, and then we will come back with the discussion.
That's for years, and I never make notes. But there's so much to unpack on this one that I made notes. So, thanks for having us here today. I'm glad to get this kicked off. It's our third attempt at this, as you all know, and contrary to what a lot of people are saying, our meetings were canceled or postponed due to public outcry. It was 40 degrees in here, and the meeting got cut short, and it was time to go. And then my dear developer friend, Scott Bosgraf, decided to take a good 2 hours of the last presentation. So we had a wonderful 10 minutes to just give some context on what we were doing. So I'm feeling we're getting a fresh start here. And the first thing that I kind of want to discuss, I mean, there's a lot of story behind this project, but for today, motivation comes up. I've been thinking about this a lot because certain people have been motivated to come out in favor and against this project. We have a crowded house here, and I can say that I began this movement. So several months ago, I hosted a public event at the Ivy House to introduce this project with myself present, the design team present, and to open it up for questions and answers. And we had several sessions, and we had in excess of 60 people come through and ask a lot of great questions and give a lot of great input and feedback to us, which was wonderful. And those are the people, as I looked at the list of the names of the letters that were sent in, those are the people who I saw, I recognized the names from coming to the event, and I got to meet them. Then there's the other side of the fence, the motivation of the people who have written all these letters, especially in the past 2 or 3 days, against the project. And none of their names, none of their information, nobody came to that open house. They didn't come to get more information. They were getting their information to get motivated from somewhere else. And I'm sure everybody's heard now that one of the neighbors started a website. And the website starts out with a lie and continues through. It says, key concerns with this development. These are factual issues with the proposed enclave PUD by Tangram The same developer already secured approval for Singapore Retreat. I know Randy Cucci, I'm not Randy Cucci. It starts with this. And then it continues on lie after lie after lie. And I can only imagine what people are thinking after they read that. And at the bottom of his website is, please respond here, let me write your complaint letter for you and submit it under your name. Gets into issues with, says, you know, tabled multiple times to correct, not correct. Simple retreat, not correct. Exceeds density, we're here to talk about that tonight. Wetland encroachment, says 6 homes are built in the wetlands. When we're done tonight, you're gonna see that not one single house is built in the wetlands. Claims 25 of 30 large trees that are on this site are being uprooted and torn out. Well, we only showed 30 trees on the site plan because those are the ones that were in the path of construction. There are over 150 large trees on this site, and anybody who drives by that intersection can see that. So it's a ridiculous claim this is taking place. Yes, 25 trees will come out. These last 5 that we've notated on there, 1, 2, 3 may come out. You'll see later on in our presentation, we're putting back trees 2 to 1 and native species, things good for the habitat there. In addition to that claim, he states that we're going to clear the site and fill 5 feet up of the entire site, burying what's left. Not true. Not affordable housing. Now, I can agree with this in the sense that when you look at state requirements, this is not affordable housing. And I do need to make a correction to you, Lene, because I don't know how this number and square footages have continued on to this point. But I'm gonna set this clear right here. So the homes are all, the base home is all the same size, 26 by 28 feet, 730 square feet. But these are 2-story homes. So they are 1,450 square feet. So the reference that Ms. Wells had provided for the cost per foot is half of that number. And our original site plan did have multifamily buildings on it. But when day was freezing and when our teeth were all chattering, the 2 comments that we were able to get before leaving was, hey, this building is way too close to the property line for the neighboring property. Now I saw that because I bought that property. But the other issue was it caused just a lot of difficulty in the parking. It made it look like there was a parking lot in front of it. That was the multifamily, the 4-unit buildings that we wanted to put in. Those were the ones that were gonna start with a 5 in front of them. Then as you moved up to detached single families and attached single families that might have garage add-ons or first floor masters, they're gonna go up. So without our density established, I can't establish exact pricing. I hope you can understand. But we're talking about a lot of flexibility in pricing. We're talking about starting in the 6s and optioning up to 30% from there. So someone who can afford a $600,000 home is a different person that can afford a 7 or an 8. So we are targeting multiple income brackets. And no, they're not affordable. But considering that every single new construction home going up in the area is 1.1 or higher, we're 40% less. That is clarification, so we're all on the same page with this piece. The last point that was brought up by Mr. Nowakowski's website is historical preservation and some promise to remodel the existing farmhouse that is there. There were no promises. There were no expectations. The prior owner, Howard Petschke, an adorable man, had the place since the 80s. And that house that he had, he acknowledged was built originally in the 1800s. Then there was an addition done in the 50s. Then there was an addition done in the 70s. So I wanted to try and save this house. So I had put it out to see, can we move this thing? And can it make it to where it has to go in one piece? So I originally started with Fenville, and that fell apart. And then a gentleman by the name of Hank, who runs People Helping People down in Coleman. He was really interested in it, but then his team took a vote and decided that they just didn't have a place to put it and the funds to actually install it. So, went to the fire department. And so now, this home is going to be utilized by the Saugatuck Fire Department until construction begins at the site for the rest of this year, and they're gonna use it for live emergency drill training. They're actually gonna start later this week. So we want to try and get some benefit out of this. Now, here's another part. In the exploration of moving this home, we found out through the developer, through the moving company and Chris Barnhardy at the fire department, that they located asbestos insulation throughout the house and asbestos tiling throughout the house. Now, you can't move that. It will rupture and break open, and then it will be a much larger problem to deal with, and we can't donate a house with asbestos to anyone. Mr. Nokowski never likes his house. I'll move it onto his property next door if you would like, but it's not something that would be safe to habitate. And I can say this from personal experience. My mother, who is sitting here, her dad died from pancreatic cancer due to asbestos poisoning. So this house is not habitable. It's going to go away after the fire department is done using it for everything that they can use it for. All right, so I don't want to really get into what I think motivates Mr. Nowakowski for starting this and spreading this misinformation to the entire community. I don't want to get into why Mr. Capoletti deems this project horrific. It doesn't make sense to me. But there's something behind it. I don't know exactly what it is. So, on to the actual information here. So, I've broken this into who, why, and what on this. But I'd like to start out by just kind of setting the stage. I'm going to read a little bit of my notes. Here today, for the first time, to have a full presentation of our plan to you, the Planning Commission. We'll be walking through information that you've been provided over the past few weeks. There is also updated information that I will be handing out as we go that will be relative to your decision. We have updated these materials to address items raised in the staff report distributed on April 14th. We understand that this is new and updated information, and we believe you deserve time to digest it, as well as to reflect feedback related to the additional information. For that reason, we want to present the entire project to the Planning Commission this evening, but we will not be requesting the Planning Commission vote on whether or not to recommend approval. Instead, we'll be requesting after our presentation that the project be tabled to May to be sure that all of your comments, thoughts, and input are included, to make it a very clear picture for everyone. So with that being said, the smallest part of this, part one, the who, like who's behind this? I'm hearing all these rumors throughout town. Where's the money coming? You know, who is this guy? So, you know my name. My wife, who is sitting right back there with the black hair, absolutely stunning. So she bought the property of Black Barn Ridge in 2020. I was developing real estate back in Chicago. I was doing affordable housing and working in gentrifying neighborhoods. Battered women's shelters, veteran housing, rehabilitation centers, things of that nature. She was corporate America, and she had saved a lot of money. She bought the land. We decided, well, let's concept this for something, probably a short-term rental, and we'll come out here and visit occasionally. Well, the more we came out here, the more we fell in love with the place. And we have two little boys, a 4-year-old and a 5.5-year-old. And we're like, no, this is where we're gonna raise them. And so we decided to upend the plan and get out here and start living this life. In that process, I gave my career back in Chicago. We moved here full time. We were living in Benville in the township for 2 years while our house was being built and getting our land put together. And I began taking on a new career, which was land development. I did it back in Chicago, different beast. Did it out here. So Black Barn Ridge, first development, put a lot of heart and soul into that one. The next one was Estates of Pine Glen, 35-acre parcel, just to the east of us, off of 133rd. That was the old sandpit property, and that became 8 home sites. I then partnered with an individual by the name of Douglas DeHaan, who owns DeHaan Homes, very high-end home builder. And we started Tangram Development Group. And the idea of Tangram is, it's a puzzle that can be solved many different ways, and that's how we look at real estate and the challenges that a lot of municipalities are facing. And we decided to concept a few things, and those things have taken off, and we're doing some work in Fenville, and now we're talking about this project here. So that's myself, that's Tangram. Who's financially behind all of these projects? So when I came out here, I was introduced to a lot of local folks, retired business owners, residents, ladies, women, or men. And they all, through these conversations, they all kind of had the same intent, which was, we believe in the land here, we believe in these communities. From Holland to Hamilton to Fenville, Saugatuck, Douglas. And they wanted to participate in projects that not only were financially rewarding, but also things that they would enjoy driving past and see as a benefit to the community. Every one of my investors lives within 15 minutes of here. And you would know their names if I said them, I'm not going to, and they care about the community. So there's nothing I'm doing as a lone ranger trying to push something through to the community that is at my own direction. It's a great group of men and women, and I love working with them. So any questions about that piece? Because that's closing up the hoop. Oh, okay. So part 2, why here? Why this parcel? This actually goes back a little bit to after I was wrapping up Black Barn Ridge. I was building a relationship with Lene because as a zoning administrator, you know, that's what her role is, to blend these two worlds. And she was telling me a lot about the housing challenges here, and then a lot about new zoning regulations that were being put together to try and mimic what the Tri-Community Master Plan was saying. So I looked at this and looked at the new zoning requirements and realized that the ones you implemented dramatically expanded density in the Blue Star corridor. And the way I interpret the master plan is that everyone knows more houses are needed. Allegan County, 5,500 house deficit right now. Every community needs to do its part to bring that up. I have children who are going to need homes. I don't want them to move away and not have a place that they can stay where they grew up at. And so it got me thinking about doing a denser development in the Blue Star corridor, because that's what the zoning was put in place for. Preserve the rural character in the township further out. The Blue Star corridor is to be designed, as I understand it, as more of Saugatuck Township's downtown. You know, that's, you know, that doesn't have that. And it's kind of like the gate, it should be the gateway to the city. And it shouldn't be just people driving down 60, 65 miles an hour blowing through the township. So, found a piece of land. And I put together a project. It was going to be affordable housing. And it was going to start at $335,000 to $340,000 for a new construction home. So, and by the way, I spoke to Linnea earlier yesterday, and she said it's okay for handouts. We usually have Morgan here, and that makes it easier for the on-screen stuff. But I'm going to hand this information out. So one of the first people I met out here was, well, what first group was the SCA. The SCA has a terrible issue in that they bring in all this wonderful staff for 5 months of the year, and they have nowhere to house them. And they have contracts, so they're required to provide some sort of housing. And it gets expensive. They spend a huge chunk of their budget every year putting their staff in Airbnbs. So I said, let me try and solve this issue along with something else, affordable housing. So 1 and 2 Old Allegan, I put under contract, and this is the site plan of it. This is the actual parallel plan that we had put together to begin to start determining our base density. And as you see where it says original site in the red, you'll see a road, you'll see a lot of parking, you'll see buildings. Those are 12-unit buildings. Well, this is a parallel plan, not the actual plan. That was just to establish density. And if you flip to the second page, you'll see the elevations of this product. They were kind of like quads connected by walkways. Price it out, we knew we could deliver them. Problem is, the site did not have sewer. And in order to do the project, it had to have sewer. So we began working with the township, and we provided a very large, deposit. And they got Brian Newhoff involved. You can see Mr. Denoyer's name is up on the board there. I don't, says he's working with his 2 kids. I don't know if he's doing that or not, but if he isn't, maybe he'll unmute. He began looking for options. There he is. Hello, Tyler.
I'm here. Hey.
This is going way back in time, my friends. So he found the best, closest, and least expensive way to get sewer to the site was to come off the end of Gaslight. And to come across a parcel, and you see these parcels labeled number 1. All of those parcels are owned by the same person. Now, I didn't know this person, but a good friend of mine, John Vanderbeek, made a connection 2 years ago. So I contacted him and said, essentially, hey, I would like to get some sewer under your property in a forced main. We'd like to just bore it 20 feet underground. We'll cut the corner of the property, and we're gonna set up a lift station on our side, and then we're gonna stub in water and sewer for you. And if you ever decide to do something, you've got it. And he said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, give me a chance to design this a little bit more, and I'll come back to you with an exact plan. And so I had one more phone call. I said, listen, we can actually put it across the property line. So where you see these arrows, the green line coming down, we could have moved that to the property line. Well, he refused to give the easement. And the affordable housing project that was going to be staff housing partially for SCA, and the rest affordable housing homes for sale at $350,000. The entire affordable housing project was then gone. And his neighbor was Mr. Novokoski. Subsequently, I moved that project to Benville. And in 3 weeks, we're breaking ground on 70 affordable housing units there. I bought 14 acres next door to that parcel, and we're concepting out this concept that was supposed to be built here. So that is a little bit about why this parcel. So we had a lot of time spent in evaluating this area. So we went back to the drawing board, and I went to my realtor and I said, do me a favor. I said, find something I can buy nearby that fits this mold, because we know there has to be sewer put in, because the master plan can't move forward. Bluestar Corridor can't move forward without this sewer system. And that's where this parcel came up. So the current project, again, Bluestar Corridor, zoned for density or rezoned a couple of years ago for a lot of density. We then looked back and said, well, if the land was 3 times the price as the other land, how do we put a lift station in here? If that's 3 times as expensive, because now we're saying we're not going to rely on a neighbor who doesn't believe in this concept, we're gonna just do it ourselves. And that corner parcel, Howard Peschke's, was the right fit for it. Let's see. All right, so that is why we are on this parcel. Part 3, what are we building? What's the benefits? Once again. All right, so what are we building? What's the benefits to the community and project goals? Number 1, establish the benchmark for how a PUD can be applied for maximum community benefit. That is our first goal that we have, and you'll see how we're going to accomplish that. Next, meet housing goals based off of the housing survey. So at the same time that the new zoning was going to take place, the township launched a housing survey, which gave a lot of great feedback. So that was, do you want affordable housing? Like, well, I tried that, that didn't go so well. Another key part was people wanted housing that was maintenance-free and smaller. And some people had mentioned that they wanted first floor masters, first floor bedrooms and things like that. So that kind of kicked off the design for the houses for this project. And we'll talk about that again. Age in place, low maintenance, that's what we're trying to target. Another one is provide public pedestrian and cycling path through the development, connecting Old Allegan to Blue Star. Getting pedestrians out of the traffic at the roundabout. So I'm an avid cyclist. I hate cycling through the roundabout. People are still not understanding that it exists. So part of our plan you'll see is we are going to create, we have a road, a private road going through with a 15-mile-an-hour zone allowed, it's one way, but there is going to be a walking and cycling path built on the side of the road. So we're making the road oversized, and it's a combined pedestrian and thoroughfare. And it will go from Old Allegan, people can cut through the development and exit at Blue Star. Lene had mentioned she didn't say where it could be done. Well, the fire department were the first people to see this site plan actually, and they are the ones who asked for this exit. And so their intent is to have it be 2 posts with a chain, but we will have a pedestrian walking or cycling on the side of that. If you go to Saugatuck Dunes Park, you'll see that they have the gates, but then there's spaces built on the side to get into the park if the gates are closed and so on. So same concept. Let's see here. Wetlands. Believe it or not, restore wetland habitat. Ms. Adrienne Peterson is here tonight, and she is with Peterson Environmental. And she's been on the property extensively, and there are some issues that we have that we need to address with it. Another point, introduce green infrastructure. Outdoor Discovery Center is here tonight, and they are going to show how the property will integrate bioswales and rain gardens to manage stormwater, as well as provide native habitat the property currently doesn't. Bring new public utilities. People, you know, it keeps coming up. The sewer system, you know, so what's the benefit? This is from Tyler. And it is the new sewer options. Or at least what the sewer will help. Everything that you see in yellow, blue, and green would be new areas able to be serviced by the lift station and the force main that we're installing. It would affect existing sites that are developed, undeveloped sites. You have Penny Royal, Ivy House, the car repair shop, the body shop, you know, they're all working on septic. They all have to keep a huge chunk of their green space cleared out for drain fields. This would eliminate that and put everybody with the option to tie in and a more efficient way of handling sewage. It's a huge tract of space that's to be created here. And yes, it will spur additional development in the Blue Star corridor, but that is the plan. That is the intent of this, is to move the density up to the corridor, create little hamlet type neighborhoods, coffee shops, things of that nature, and be something that people slow down and stop. Okay, and we're on to the green space. Rewilding is the intent. So we plan to have the 2.5 acres of the wetlands that are there. And they will be restored, good functioning wetlands. We will also be adding a full acre of prairie grass meadows, an acre of new wildflower meadows. And the infill from the houses to the front of the streets is going to be eco grass, no irrigation, no lawn mowing, pure native habitats. That's 5 acres restored. Now, you can say it's 9.13 acres, and they only have 1.25 of open space. When you see the landscape plan and realize when you drive through, and this is a condo development, right? It's not meant to be a single family home subdivision. It's condo development. You will see that over half of the land is going to have flowers, prairie grasses, wetland areas, all restored. And then finally, we are installing what we are calling the Blue Star Pocket Park. So through the neighborhood, I explained that there will be a pedestrian path connecting the 2 big roads. And as you know, there is a plan to put a path out to River Bluff Park. And as development in this area does continue, more and more people will be cruising through this area. So what's the pocket park consist of? It's in the development. We have a site picked out for it. Obviously, when we get down to the final site plan, you can have say in terms of like it moved and you can move around. But what we're doing is we're putting in a 16 by 20 foot steel pergola with a louvered roof that can be open and closed to accommodate rain or snow. There are benches, there are picnic tables in the sun. There is a mini dog walk area with doggy poop bags. And there is a fix-it bicycle station that's going to be installed, which is a large bike rack, tools, pumps, for people who are cycling through, cutting through the development, a place of respite that they can stop, work on their bike if they need to. If they're walking from Penny Royal, taking a walk down to River Bluff Park, a place for them to stop, have the dog to their business, and continue on. We are also going to be making it the development's interurban stop to try and promote alternate forms of transportation. All right, so existing site plan. Structures. I mentioned the house. I mentioned the situation with it. There are 2 other barns. One barn it's leaning over, it's going to be torn down. The other barn, a much larger one, is being relocated to new purpose. The landscape, again, roughly 2.5 acres of wetlands. What about the other land, right? What's going on there? 6.5 acres. Well, Howard loved a short lawn. So he went through with the writing for 40 years and made it look like kind of like the dog park looks, which is fine. Unfortunately, in this process, he wiped out all native habitat that support different species of animals and pollinators. And now what's happened is invasive species, not only in the wetlands, but have popped up in the rest of the the community and all the uplands, which needs to be remediated. The proposed site plan, obviously, we've got the parallel plan. Just go through that. We see that based on her review, the township attorney had the same interpretation and our attorney had the same interpretation. That it conforms and establishes a base density of 32 units. Although when you look at the parallel plan, it's not very pretty. I really don't want to develop it. I want to do something amazing for this town. Public sewer. All right, so there's been a lot of talk about from neighbor of wetland encroachment, building houses in wetlands and of the such. Well, there are wetlands on the property, and there is going to be an impact to a wetland. Here are wetlands on this property. This picture was taken by me a couple days ago. This is the roundabout. And you see a beautiful mallard duck floating in about a foot of water. And if you flip to the next page, you will see what looks like a muskrat den. Also in the wetlands, okay? Well, the third page, you don't see any wildlife. You see a wet piece of land behind a barn. So that is the part of the backyard. The original backyard from the prior. It doesn't support wildlife. It's simply a depression that somehow a few species of grass and plants got in. And that is being viewed as a wetland. And it's not a house that's going to go in. When you look at the site plan at what you call the crotch of the sticking end, that is where this pocket is at. The installation of the force main and lift station, which we're putting under the road, and keep in mind, we had two options out here, and Tyler laid them both out. We had an option to take the lift station, which is at the southeast corner of the property, and run it down Old Allegan all the way to Blue Star, and impact all the wetlands of the pictures you see with the birds and the muskrats. Okay? Or we concede as a developer and allow this public utility to go through the middle of our subdivision, cutting it in half. This is what drove the site plan. This is the part that cannot be changed. We designed a site plan around putting a public utility in place and allowing an easement for the township and deeding the land over to the township. So that the township will own the lift station. So the impact that's going to be done to the wetland is going to be less than 1/10 of 1 acre. It's roughly 3,500 square feet, foundation of a modern home being built. And that will be permitted through Eagle. Ms. Peterson will be assisting with this. Actually, she'll be doing the whole thing. Get involved with that. And then when that is done, that's no longer a wetland. Which is why you see houses, a couple units there now. Because the road caused the infraction to the wetland. The wetland is being impacted by the road and the utilities that are going through. For this lift station, force main is being put in very deep. So it will no longer be a wetland, but the other pictures you see are the beautiful wetlands that flank the west and south portion of the property and the entire eastern portion of the property. Those are being untouched. We're simply going to go in there and remediate the invasive species. Density. All right. Here's my take on density. So we are requesting the full 25% bonus on top of our 32 base density, bringing us to 40 units. But I'd like to give a little more clarity. If you go online right now and you look on Reddit, then you hunt for new homes for sale. First of all, they're on right now. The last one was up for $1,000,001. The listing disappeared. I don't know if they're under contract or closed off market or what. But most of the houses being built now are, because a lot of people are moving to this first floor master concept, they're having larger first floors. So they're 2,500, 3,000 square feet. That's the footprint. So when you talk about the site plan, and it should have just 10 houses, as my neighbor says, that's 10 big footprints. So if you take that footprint and you cut it in half to 1,300 to 1,500 square feet, you're at the same footprint now with 20 homes. Now cut that footprint in half again, 720 square feet. That is the same footprint as built 40 homes, but they're tiny homes relative to what's being built. These are tiny homes. Setbacks, in my opinion, setbacks. What you will see when you dig into the site plan is that, with the exception of just a couple units, all appropriate setbacks are there, and there are buffers to everything, between homes, the wetlands, green spaces, and so on. But as it relates to setbacks, it's important to recognize that the condo project, fundamentally different from a traditional single-family subdivision. The subdivision, like Gaslight, everybody comes from Gaslight, apparently. Each lot stands on its own, so setbacks help organize space of separation via setbacks. Not the same with condo. Condominium, the entire site is planned, it's managed as one cohesive development, allows us to design the layout more intentionally rather than being constrained by individual lot lines. This is the whole purpose of the PUD and condo project. Because of that, traditional setbacks don't function the same way. In many cases, they actually limit good design. Second, eliminating front setbacks allows us to create a more walkable, cohesive environment, bringing buildings closer to the street helps to define the streetscape, creates a stronger sense of place, and reflects patterns that you already see in successful pedestrian-oriented buildings. Instead of a series of small, underused front lawns, we're focusing on shared green spaces and common areas that are more usable than. Third, doesn't mean a reduction in quality or character. In fact, the opposite is true. Because this is a condominium, we can ensure consistent architecture, coordinate the landscaping, and have a well-designed street presence across the entire project. So this request for your variance or assistance with our setbacks isn't about removing standards. It's about applying the right approach to a different type of a development. The goal is a higher quality, more cohesive, and more walkable environment. Now, as for the homes, as you have in your packets, a variety of elevations. So they're Scandinavian style, they're stick built, but I want you to think of them as modular in character. Every single home starts out the same, a 26 by 28 foot, 2-story box. From there, people, based on the site, because each lot is a little bit different, they can choose to have a garage. They can choose to, instead of having a garage, have a third floor master suite. The second floors are modular in the sense that you can have it designed as a 3-bedroom, a 2-bedroom plus den, 2 huge master suites. It's lifestyle driven for individuals. They can choose whatever layout they want. Then we have some elevations with micro garages. Again, we're trying to push the idea of alternate transportation. So we have micro garages that are designed to fit and accommodate several e-bikes and golf carts. As you know, golf carts are getting very popular in town, especially the ones that you can put a license tag on. Less parking space, They're electric. That's what these spaces would be for. We have just a couple on the site that are first floor master and garage. Very few. I think there must be 2 or 3 in the site plan that won't work. And then there's a variety of elevations because you can cache them different ways. And there's also an option for a second floor walkout master balcony. So for those who have a second floor master, they can have a walkout patio that spans the entire width of the home. Every single home will have a 6-foot overhang on the front, so they'll have covered conversation space off the front of the home. And then on the rear of the homes, there are 12 by 12 concrete slabs. And we are working with a similar companies like Henry Royal has done with their new expansion. That's who is going to also be doing the pergola for the community park that we're doing. Those could be lined up as options to the homes as well. We're not going to have a lot of options. As you know, we have all the interiors being professional interior design. People will pick 1 of 3 or 4 packages in terms of what feeling they're going for with their home. And that will flow through to the paint colors, built-ins, floor, countertops, fixtures. Every house has body sprays in the master, bidets, heated toilet seats. So these are a very nice product that we're trying to deliver to the community. We're trying to deliver something to give people the ability to age in place. We're trying to do it in a location that allows people to be active and get into town. And for those who are not active and can't get into town, they're extremely close. And we're trying to get we're going to be speaking in urban, letting them know that here's the pickup spot. To try and create the opportunity for people. And that is all on my I would like to first ask my attorney, John, to come on up and go over a few things he wants to talk about. We also have our engineer who can give you a few things, including the mobility layout for the site, kind of not sidewalks, but talking about like the moving around and show kind of where on the site this pocket park would be. And then we of course have Adrian Peterson and other Discovery Center.
Okay, my name is John Anders. As Johnny Walker said, I'm an attorney at Miller Johnson. And advising as the project moves forward to try to help out with some of the interpretation of the ordinance, address staff questions and comments and things like that. And that's really been my role as sort of an advisor working in the back. I get the privilege of being the first person tonight to sort of kick off the third party comments and resources that the folks that are here to try to help provide information or ask questions to the extent we can. But I think to address some of the concerns that have been raised with respect to wetlands as we do. Let's see if we can get a sense here to talk about wetlands at this site, but I kind of wanted to just as a precursor to put this wetlands issue in context a little bit. We're here, Tangram is here as the applicant because they're wanting to do this. They want to get it permitted. They want to do it with permission and the town's input. And that includes, doing things like going in for equal permits where necessary, where we're going to get connected up. I want to put this in context just against public comments, other folks, neighboring properties that have actually been cited for filling wetlands without the proper permit. This is not that. We're not going in. The proposal is not to go in and fill wetlands without a permit. What happened next door. When you look next door, it appears that some preliminary site work must have been started or done. Regulated wetlands were impacted. Eagle issued a violation notice requiring those to be remediated or put back. We're here, the applicants here, I can see this permission to work through design to talk about what the wetlands are, rather than doing it as has been done on other properties in the past, so they just take the action and deal with it. Just want to throw that out. Thank you.
All right, I'm Rob Lamer. I'm with XL Engineering. You've seen me here before. I'm the engineer on this thing along with the rest of my team back at the office. We got a review letter, we've been getting review letters very short notice of meeting. And so some of these things that we're kind of throwing your way all of a sudden at the very end are not intended to be that way, but we're trying to address things that are in letters that maybe we didn't have a chance to look at because we didn't know that that was gonna be more of a concern. So we put this together based on some of the conversations from Tyler's letter for the township review of the plan. And we walked with the owner a bit through how he wants to make this look. This is probably, so we put to the end of this sheet yesterday afternoon and this morning. The red is the existing sidewalk. Google has caught up to us and now they have the roundabout on the plan, so we can kind of show that without actually topo surveying the whole thing. But the red is the sidewalk as it is today. The purple is a future on the south side of Old Allegan that I believe Tyler's saying that's where they prefer to have that in the future. And then the blue is what would connect to our development through to here. And one of the questions was, well, this fire access is gonna be gated off. If you go to most parks and you have a bike path, there's ways to set up gates so that bikes can go through, but not vehicles. That is what we'll end up doing here. So when you see a gate on the plan, fire department wanted a gate, well, okay, now we're moving to kind of bike movements. And so we can change that gate to be the type of gate needed to be able to have the mobility work. If you look interior to the site, the little blue star there in the center between units 4, 5, and 6, that's where we're proposing this pergola for a rest area for cyclists or anybody on some sort of moving vehicle on those. They're almost vehicles now, right? Those electric bikes or whatever they are to rest over in that area. It's also going to be a place for the mailboxes. So I see this as kind of a community center for this development, but also a place that's open to the public. The orange is kind of where I've highlighted the pedestrian routes. We've intentionally tried to keep them off where the parts where there's probably more bikers. And the bikes would be within the road itself. You gotta realize this is 15-mile-an-hour road. This is not, I mean, I grew up on a street that was 25 and I was riding my bike. There were no sidewalks. We were always riding our bikes in the road. This is a dead end road. The only people on this development with cars are the people that live there. As you get further back, it's fewer. The front end is one-way road, 22 feet wide. It doesn't have to be 22 feet for a one-way road, but that's why it's 22 feet, so you can have bikes on that too. The orange is the sidewalks. Yes, there's some crossings, but if you look at those crossings again, they're not. If you look at the number of units, for example, by 22 where there's a crossing, you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 units there that probably have a number of 2 to 3 trips per day going in or out. And so you're looking at less than on an hourly basis, 3 to 4 cars an hour, probably peak. So there's nothing, when you start looking at crossings, that's no different than if you go down a residential block in any community out in the city of Wyoming. I'm crossing streets all the time without crosswalks, and that's when you got more residents in there. This is less of that. So this is what we just put together for this. I also want to touch a little bit on the sewer, because I don't think some people understand what that is. So this is being brought to the lift station and a force main, and that is only probably 6 feet deep. But when you're starting out from that lift station, where lift stations are, gravity sewer is very, very deep, because you try to keep that gravity and have fewer lift stations around. So through this site, that sanitary sewer is gonna be 20 to 25 feet deep. And that's a significant depth. And so when you're looking at trying to get through routing, that sort of thing, and the cost, you're working the water table. If you were to go around the site, we're cutting diagonally through. If you're going around the site with a sanitary sewer, you're tearing up large swaths in order to make that work. I even questioned how you would, Tyler said you'd be going down the whole Allegan Road center line with the sewer if you ran down that. I don't know that you would do that on Blue Star. If you ran it on the east side of the road down Blue Star, you would probably be running into those wetlands there because a lot of the ditches there are also wetlands. And so when we're talking about running through the site, we're attacking less wetlands, impacting fewer wetlands than if you do run it around. Plus the cost of hypothesis is shorter than running the 2 legs of a triangle. We can do a bigger theorem on it. But that's why this is a benefit to the community when you look at the cost. This is the most expensive part of the sewer system because it's near the lift station. It's the deepest. And anyway, I think that's important. You know, I also want to just, and I don't know how much Tyler is involved with this, but I think it's important for you to know. I talked to him back in the fall and I was like, what is your schedule for this sewer and lift station? And he said he was hoping to have it permitted by July and then start construction in September. And that was months ago, and every time we delay this, and I'm not, I want you to know what you're voting on. I do want you to know. So I'm not telling you to speed things up, but I do want you to know that timing impacts his schedule for that too, and it will probably get pushed back when this keeps moving like this direction. So if you've got any more questions for me, please direct them my way. I would love to answer them. I'm here to answer questions, not to have to one with this.
So I didn't spend any time really talking about this whole tip situation and funding this. So this sewer, this lift station on the force main is gonna go 4,000 plus feet down the road to Cal Lake. Several $1 million. And when I had discussions with the township about it, because it's predominantly a township benefit. So it's sized to accommodate, I believe, 350 new residential units throughout the 100 acres or something like that. And ours is, as you see, was 10% of that. So this is all for 90% for community benefit. I asked if it was going to be bonded, how it was going to be financed, and you know, at the end of the day, to speed things up, I said, you know what? I'll get it paid for. So I went to my investment group and I said, this is a huge infrastructure project for the township. And it would make things go a lot quicker and easier for them to pay for it. And so that began in the discussion at the TIF, was how do we get repaid? And if anybody understands the cost of money over time, when you put several $1 million out, it's a big number when it comes to interest. So our group agreed to a 3 to 3.5% return. So we're simply getting paid back millions of dollars over 30 years at a very nominal rate of return. And you can obviously get better. My investment group could have gotten better than that, just going to LMCU and putting money into CD. But they believe in the project and they believe in the infrastructure improvement it's going to provide. So just want to get that out there.
Your whole investment on the project would be 300.
Just on this, the couple $1 million for the force main. So the
Oh,
so the lift station, the force main, and infrastructure work is around $3.5 million. We're funding the entire cost of that, even though the majority of that is for public benefit. And then we will just get prepaid back over decades. And part of this also, Lene touched on this a little bit about the path to Republic Park and how it is intertwined with this project. So because of this TIF, we have more the development based upon the 40 units will throw off enough taxable revenue to repay the infrastructure costs. And there is close to $1 million to $1.1 million left over. And Tyler and Mr. DeFranco worked together, they bid it out. And the very first phase of the River Bluff Park route coming off the roundabout will be built into this, so the development is also allowing that to occur. I believe they're taking it to the highway. And then do a lot of work. Tyler, are you there for this one?
Yes, I am. I got a baby in my hands. I'm here.
Sorry.
Yep.
So
No, that's right. We're taking it to the highway.
where's the River Bluff? Where's the trail going? I know it's gonna go on the south side of the street.
Yeah, ideally we're gonna take it from the roundabout all the way to the edge of the right of way of the highway and stop it there. Like we talked about, the permitting time to get it through the highway would take too long and delay this project too much. So it would have to be a separate project that the township would do on their own. But that would be the plan.
Thanks, Tyler. So the project is now not only providing public sewer, lift station, community benefit, but we're also tying in the extension of this, or the creation of the path to go down Old Allegan. So our on the mobility plan, you see that there in blue is the proposed sidewalk that's bringing it right to the roundabout. And Daniel has asked that we put in that, from there, he'll take it and put a crosswalk into the south side of the street. And then the bike path will go right along the south side of Old Allegan up to the highway. That's also tied into this project. I think the only, one other important thing here is our greenscape. And I would like to bring up Adrian Peterson as well as ODC to give some comments on this, particularly because there's been so much talk about encroaching on wetlands. She has expertise, but this is what she does. She's very well known in the area. And the idea of wetland setbacks are the topic that she can address.
I'm Adrienne Peterson with Peterson and Vandenberg Environmental, and I conducted a wetland delineation of the parcel in 2024. And then recently was shown their new plan, and I was actually very impressed with it. They're avoiding the wetlands to the extent feasible. There's only a little bit of wetland impact that was unavoidable with the roads, requirements for the fire access, things like that. So I was pleasantly surprised actually by it. I review a lot of development plans where we assist with obtaining legal permits. If there are wetlands involved, they have to be. So I had not seen a plan like this where they're proposing such an ecologically friendly habitat and native plantings adjacent to the wetlands. I have not seen that in this area at all. So that was a really nice surprise, very impressive with that. So I think that's going to really benefit the wetlands in that area because it will, protect them from low grass, structure placement, encroachments. It's going to provide a nice habitat adjacent to that area, really improve that area. In addition, the wetlands that are there today have a lot of invasive species. There's reed canary grass, which is present in kind of the southwest one, the kind of main area of that is the large kind of emergent wetland area is predominantly reed canary grass, along with the one that's in the northeast corner, the emergent portion of it is predominantly reed canary grass as well. So ODC is planning to address that invasive species, which will really increase the diversity of the plants that can come in, the native plants that can come in, where reed canary grass kind of creates a mat, kind of blocking out all those native plants. So there really will be an improvement to that area. So I was, yes, very impressed with that. And ODC can talk to the.
Were there any, is there anything that do you have questions about any encroachments or the retaining walls about that at all, where Adrian sits now? Okay. I have handouts for this gentleman here, so let me get this going.
Yeah, my name is Nate Bosch, obviously, yeah, so, Adrian actually said a lot of what I would end up saying anyways. A big part of what we're looking at doing here, related to how this development interacts with the wetland spaces to create buffers and transitions from the existing wetland spaces up into the development, so you're seeing that kind of lighter green hatch along the perimeters there, that's intended to cover those transition zones, those high slope areas, the ones that could be inundated with water depending on the time of the year. And so what we're trying to do is kind of create that native plant species that would transition that zone from wetland to upland. And then again, extending that upland species mix all the way through the development up into the front yard spaces. It's doing a couple things there. One, it's continuing that native plant, that habitat space for pollinators and wildlife. It's also using the native plant species to create buffers between the units, especially those patio spaces in the backs of them. We're using some of that eco grass then in those front zones where we don't have a lot of space, but we're still trying to maintain a low free area. And then, as it's been alluded to before, we're looking at a 2-to-1 replacement of the existing tree canopy that has been slated for removal. Really trying to, create a regenerative space with native plant species that were historical to the area. So we've got a lot of oaks, maples, some tulip tree, and some pines, and service berries. So trying to kind of create a holistic, regenerative approach to the landscape. Not many developments are going this way when it comes to trying to eliminate as much of the mowed grass space as possible. So this is certainly a unique one. And so our team is really excited about the opportunity to maybe support creating that habitat and restoring that habitat. So.
The basins that you guys think of us.
Yeah, I think Adrian highlighted a lot of that. And I think the idea that, there's quite a few that are prominent throughout the space. And again, as Adrian alluded to, those invasive species tend to overcrowd and overcompete for habitat space. And so our goal and our team will go throughout the wetland spaces as well as any of the spaces that we're doing over the duration of the project, and be continually checking in on those to make sure that we're attacking any of that invasive species as they pop up. So.
And stormwater.
Oh, yeah, so and it's been alluded to a little bit as to how we would, thinking about some of those pre-made bioswales or rain gardens. I think that would be part of, as we start to connect with the Excel team as that design gets further in depth, to understand how we could do that and support that from a landscape perspective. So whether it's the right type of plant species in certain locations, under drainage and proper soil media that would allow for those detention areas or those rain garden spaces to be usable for to meet those requirements.
That's what I have for the presentation. If there's any questions you have, I'm happy to answer them. And if there aren't, then my attorney will close it up.
We'll let you finish your presentation, and then we'll have a discussion within the commissioners, and if the commissioner has a specific question, they can ask you at that time. Okay. So it's not part of your presentation. Okay.
Thank you. As Johnny alluded to, I tried to close this up, try to do it relatively quickly. As Johnny mentioned earlier, we are very much acknowledge that we're giving you a lot of additional new information this evening. New handouts, new things that we're hoping to address both community concerns and township's concerns and things that were cited in the report. We acknowledge that these things would lead to conditions on approval and things like that. And we want to give them some ability to just sort of chew on that and digest that, as John mentioned. Now, our request would not be for you to decide or vote on whether to recommend approval to the township board, but to table this, to take a minute to evaluate everything, and then potentially take action at next month's meeting. The last thing I wanted to touch on, and again, a lot of the detail here are things that would be flushed out in final site. We're providing additional detail, hoping to provide a fuller picture and to illustrate what this would look like via the concept plan. And a lot of this has to do with elements that are related to that density bonus. That is a facet of the PUD. As folks talked about, PUD density is set by developing the parallel plan. I think a lot of has been said about the parallel plan and how it's developed. Township Council has provided their opinion on it. We provided a letter sort of outlining that, but that baseline density is developed through the parallel plan. And then the PUD section of the ordinance provides the ability or option to grant a density bonus. And Tangram here is asking for that density bonus. And that density bonus, it lists 6 elements. There's a 7th element that is sort of up to the planning commission's discretion. So we don't know in the moment what we're presenting for information to address what that 7th element would be. We sort of rely on a discussion with township, with the planning commission to let us know what that would be. But a lot of this information and additional drawings tonight are geared towards hitting those density bonus elements. I'm just going to quickly tick through those elements and what we're hoping this material provides some color on. The first is whether the development provides public amenities such as playgrounds, picnic facilities, or community centers. As Johnny sort of previewed, the plan is to have that Blue Star pocket park, that pergola along the walking path. That would be a public facility. That is something that's going to be, and again, this goes down to the conditions and the site plan and everything else, but the intent is for that to be a public. And, as the project gets developed, we talk about what are the legal mechanisms that are in place to make that public, right? Those are details that we will work through at a later phase, but the intent is for that to be public. The second one is whether the development includes a variety of housing types with ranging price points. Again, Johnny touched on this a little bit earlier, but there are differences in the homes between attached and detached homes. There will be differences in the layouts internally, differences in the material on the outside, and then ultimately what those owners are selecting is going to cause differences in prices. So the product at the end of the day will have a variety of housing types at different price points. As has been alluded to, what those price points are in the range is subjective, but as Johnny mentioned, the possibility exists there for almost a 30% spread from one to the other. Number 3 is whether the development provides paths, trails, greenways, or other pedestrian and non-motorized transportation facilities accessible to the public and connected to or creating a network of trails throughout the community. Again, this is something we were hoping to more further demonstrate in the drawings. It's not reflected in the concept plan earlier, but the plan is to make that pathway adjacent to an internal roadway public to connect Blue Star and Loudon without use of the roundabout. So that's again something that we could address through conditions and site plan about how to make that area public, but the intent is for that to be a public connection. Number 4, and I'm not going to labor this one, is extending public sewer to priority areas. As Johnny mentioned, this is really driven by the extension of that sewer. So we believe that one is addressed adequately. Tick down to number 6, and whether stormwater management on site relies upon manufactured natural systems such as bioswales, rain gardens, or installed wetlands. And this is what we're hoping partnering with ODC will provide is how can we think about and design the detention areas that's going to manage stormwater so that it doesn't turn into your typical subdivision retention pond with riprap. It's something that utilizing ecological factors to have a positive impact site. So again, we believe at this point, we're providing additional information that ticks the box for 5 of the 7 elements. The 7th element, we can't determine what it is. I'm sure we'd be willing to seek input and feedback on that item, but we don't know what it is. And that's the reason why we're asking for that 25% bonuses, is each element makes you eligible for 10%, right, with a maximum of 25. And the thought is if we're providing these benefits sort of over and above what would qualify for 25%, the project should be eligible for it. Thank you.
One last bit of good news is I did still buy that big parcel for the affordable house. So if this project goes through, lift station's installed. My team is ready to move forward for living in affordable housing project here, so.
Hold on.
All done.
Okay,
No less.
all right, so, Commissioner, will have a discussion, then if they have specific questions to ask you, then, they'll address it. Right. All right.
I think we make Doug go first.
Lene, what's your thing, we have a lot of information. Are we better just to postpone at this point and then, let you, review what was presided and then create a new?
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
I-
I think I wanna bring up a few things on
Okay.
the list of items that I think would still be important to have clarity
Okay.
on. Number one, I do think the parallel plan needs to be fixed with those 3 units in the R1 to meet our 24-foot minimum wall dimension.
Agreed. Would
Yeah.
everybody agree on that? Okay.
I think that sidewalk needs to be added on Blue Star on all the plans as well as a crosswalk.
Okay.
Agreed.
Everybody agree?
Yep.
Okay.
The path, the connected path within the development. I would like to see more detail on the material, the width. How that connected path connects to Blue Star and that sidewalk. How that is inviting, like if I were a member of the public, how would I know that I can turn in there? And where would I be going once I got to Old Allegan, because there's nowhere to go right now, there's no crossing proposed. To the pathway that connects to River Bluff at the intersection of this development.
Would everybody, okay.
Details of the pocket park, I also think that the pocket park should be in the location of the dumpster. So that it is visible and accessible from both of the one-ways. Because if you were coming in from Old Allegan going to Blue Star, you would never know it was there, nor would you know that you could use it. The size of that, all the features listed, it should also be connected to the sidewalk in the development. Which is not in the location where it's proposed. I would like to see written description of the open space and how that will be protected in perpetuity. In one of the legal letters, the ownership of the development is still in question. I believe you own the property, I'm not. It's what it says on the application, so.
Cangram's the developer and
And the owner.
the asset is sitting in enclave of Sagatuck LLC.
We need to, I believe the engineer brought up the easements around the utilities, especially the fire. Access road. The crosswalk. At Old Allegan and Blue Star, I think we need to know exactly who's building that, who's designing it.
Can I jump in on that one really quick?
Mhm.
So this is a little confusing for us too. So when we initially started concepting this project, we were told by the township that they were already moving forward with putting a sidewalk in on that side of the street, all the way from the roundabout, all the way up to close to Clearbrook, I think, or 134th. And so then we got involved with our project, and then it was only a few weeks ago where we were told, well, you're putting that sidewalk. So the problem is that there is a lot of wetlands there. So there was a discussion that I was part of that you're going to somehow encapsulate, I think, sewers or something like there, the stormwater runoff. And then the sidewalk will go on top of it. And so that project was paused until this project was approved so that that sidewalk would continue. So I think we are waiting on understanding the engineering of that from Reiner Newhoff. We can certainly put it on the site plan, And the last conversation with Daniel was that he wanted us to show a crosswalk, but that's on the township, right? That's leaving our property. So that's where that is at, my understanding.
Okay, so, but Ms. Wells will work with, our township.
Yeah.
In regards to that issue.
Yeah, I think we need to think through, and talk about that, right, and we will, it sounds like it. The dumpster location, I already talked about that, but I think. I guess I was curious about, could there be part service, does there need to be land for that? All your drawings should include the lift station and the land around it that's gonna be deeded for that lift station. Something in writing, I appreciate the comments from Ms. Peterson and that would see the use of the concept of rewilding. Putting something in writing that there would be a prohibition against the use of pesticides, herbicides and things like that, especially with proximity to the wetlands. Accessory dwelling units, that wasn't discussed. Nor were short-term rentals, just want to make sure that you know that that's in the requirements that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's no intention for SDRs.
And I mean, those were the main things that I was taking notes on here. And we talked about the other hundreds of trees that will be preserved. We have a definition of landmark trees in our ordinance, and I believe those are the trees that are included on one of the plans when there were 30 landmark trees. And of those, maybe the 20 to 25 would be torn out for development and others would be compromised. That's my understanding of what's shown on that drawing, but if that's not the case, I think we need to be really clear about what landmark trees will be saved or removed. And of the other trees on the site, sure, those would be staying, but I don't know that those are the landmark trees in terms of the size of the species, the diameter, height, so it's just some confusion, I don't know. Those were things on my list.
I can note what that is. So when you're surveying a site and you locate individual trees, that's an individual shot at every tree. And you have to call up diameter and stuff. The cost of that goes way up from a survey standpoint. So we located the trees that were out of the wetlands because that was the area we were gonna build. The rest, we kind of bubbled and say, hey, there's a lot of trees in here. And individually trees, those are all huge trees. So if you need the landmark trees, we can start trying to inventory that, but the intent is we aren't gonna touch anything in those wetlands. So if there's landmark trees there, they're gonna stay there, they're there. But that's how that plan shows the key trees in the upland area where we potentially could develop. That was my.
I'll let you guys. Yeah, right. Okay, so, Commissioners, you've heard what, Ms. Wells talked. Is there anything, in addition to what he has spoken that you think that, as we try to digest some of this, that also needs to be addressed?
As a resident architect, I know that when it's concerned about the architecture, and personally, I think it's better than what we usually see here anyway. Distinct variations in material that you've already alluded to.
Yeah, so we have a variety of things, standing seam roofs and walls, and then the fronts, we have 5 or 6 different varieties of composite product that's wood grain, different colors. We're moving different colors throughout the property with our interior designer to do that. So there's a variety of materials.
You're not letting people bring in their own.
They can't, no, and as a matter of fact.
So you'd have some control over.
Each site is designated, so we can't, for example, every home site is gonna have its own color and pattern designated by us. So if somebody wants a green hued home, there might be 3 of them. Here's where your site plan is then. So we're controlling all of that.
I guess the first is that I think we should comply with their request and where when the time is appropriate, I'll make a motion to postpone.
So you don't have anything else to add to
So
it?
I do,
Okay.
the one thing I noticed I love the ODC and everything they do for us. The only problem I have was if you wanted to go out and throw a frisbee or have a place that's bigger than this room for your dog to run. It would be nice if there was just at least a plain grass area that, you know, where kids could throw a frisbee, throw a baseball back and forth. Or you could throw a ball for your dog, because that tiny little area next to the mailboxes isn't going to work on if your dog is bigger than that.
If you, I can jump in on that. Oh, actually, I'll jump in.
Well, this is just something I want Lene.
Just did the discussion.
No, the top right corner on ODC's landscape plan, that is, I believe, is that a half acre?
Recreational, I think so.
So that area is, so there's wetlands around it. And they are going to be doing installation of prairie grass, buffering up to the wetlands. And then the whole inside pocket of that is going to be the like eco grass or very short product.
Oh, well, that's.
And there's going to be a bocce court, there's gonna be a communal fire pit, an area to play frisbee with dogs.
Okay, so if we would see that on the site plan.
Yeah, it's on the landscape plan, but it's on the site plan.
Okay, so that we would
It's not
have a
clear.
better understanding where that's at, so that would be helpful.
That's it.
Okay, Ms. Brown?
I was just gonna make a comment on that architecture too. But you've got between 21 and 30 buildings, so according to that table 3.50, you did in 6 varieties, and I could only come up with 4.
I thought there were 7.
You've got more than 4 renderings, but some of them look exactly the same, just a mirror image. So it's not-
But if they're different color, different material.
If you need us to show it in the actual colors we're doing, to show that variety, we're happy to do so.
Yeah, I went based off the renderings you gave us.
Yeah, so
Then I can
clarify that.
I will
Make sure that
we make sure
taken care
that, I was just looking at swatches yesterday with Don, so we've got.
You probably have a material for it.
We do, and we would bring that, if you'd like to see that, we can bring that next time.
Thanks, Jack.
And then are all the roof lines the same height, or do you
Yes, and
vary?
you asked this question in January.
Well,
They're-
no, I asked you
They're
how
30, they're
tall they were.
all
Are they all
30 feet.
35 feet?
They're all 30.
30.
30.
They're all identical.
So they're the main footprint of every single one of these
It's all 30.
is all 30. Of course, the roof lines, you will see it broken up a little bit because there is gonna be an option for a fireplace. They're gonna be more modern Scandinavian style where they hang from the ceiling. And so we might have false chimneys above, right? So that you might see a little bit of variety in the plant.
Lynn, I have a question about the wetlands. I did a lot of reading about wetlands. And the 50-foot setback is really pretty much disregarded everywhere. And from what I've read, when you violate those setbacks, it'll kill the wetlands. It destroys them.
I can let Adrian speak to this.
And
So the,
You wanna come up to the microphone? I'm sorry, just for the benefit of others on Zoom. Sorry.
So the wetland areas, right now are pretty much mowed grass up to them, a lot of the areas, some areas aren't, but some of the areas are mowed grass because they don't like to mow his lawn. So he mowed a lot of the areas on there. So right now, there's not a huge buffer around the wetlands, I would say. The buffer that the township has taken on of the 50-foot buffer is one of the largest I've seen. I don't know what other communities all have, but that's one of the largest ones I have seen. I know Spring Lake Township has a 25-foot buffer, and even that's been a challenge dealing with developments. But in this case, because they're proposing, it's a condominium development, so the yards, the everything is going to be maintained by the association, so there's control, which is great. Because usually if there's not control, people end up mowing into the wetland and they don't respect those setbacks very well. But in this case, it's gonna be already, proposed as native plantings, which is a huge improvement. And that will buffer those wetlands. So that's great. I mean, they don't have the 50 feet, but I think that the smaller buffer that they have is gonna be much more beneficial.
I have read that they vary from 25 to 100, and so the townships kind of break them up.
Eagles is zero.
Pardon me?
So Eagle who regulates wetlands, no, they don't suggest a setback.
They don't have authority over setback. Just the townships usually.
They only actually get involved when you go into the wetland. So they're put off 10 feet, 50 feet. And we were looking at stuff recently, we were looking at stuff and I was showing that only 10 to 12% of municipalities in Michigan actually have a setback, usually just for Eagle.
Okay. And when you do construction, you're excavating and tearing down, taking the trees down, you're gonna be in that buffer a lot. I mean, no matter how the houses end up, you're gonna be doing a lot of digging and excavating all next to them.
Right, so they're,
Wetlands.
yep, so the wetland is gonna be protected by Eagle. So they're gonna propose to do a few wetland impacts that are unavoidable, like feather road crossings and things like that. But during construction, they're not gonna be able to be into those wetlands, at least from a legal perspective.
Silt fence.
Yeah, they'll have to have a silt fence up to make sure that the sediment doesn't go into it, and then they'll excavate out and build the buildings and then restore everything back, and then they're gonna plan on what the native plantings, which is built up to that area.
So this has been submitted to Eagle, or has it been?
It has not yet, because they don't have site plan approval yet, so kind of waiting for that part of it, and then we can move forward with applying for the permits from Eagle.
I've also read, wherever you do end up losing wetland, that you need to make it up somewhere else.
Yeah, so typically from an Eagle perspective, if you impact a wetland, if they, you have to prove that you have no way to avoid impacting that wetland first. And then if you can prove that, then they usually let you try to do some kind of mitigation. If you're under 1/10 of an acre, like in this case, it looks like we're gonna be under 1/10 of an acre with the wetland impacts. They don't typically require mitigation. If it's over 1/10 and up to 1/3, they often will request that you purchase mitigation bank credits. ODC actually has a mitigation bank in the watershed, the credits left or not. But anyway, so that they'd have to purchase wetland mitigation credits. So if they impacted an emergent wetland, just using round numbers, if it's an acre of wetland that they impacted, they'd have to buy 1.5 acres of wetland mitigation bank credits. And they're pretty pricey. They're about 120,000 per acre right now, so it's not a cheap thing to do, but so in this case, I don't know if they require any mitigation. They may still push for them to purchase some mitigation bank credits.
But you just don't know.
We don't know for sure, but you typically, under 1/10 of an acre, they typically do not. Between 10 and 1/3, they have the option to, and over 1/3 of an acre of wetland impact is when they're required to do some kind of mitigation by regulation.
I guess I just also like to note that 15 of the buildings do fall within the setback, which represents 62% of the total buildings, and then 3 of the 4 detention ponds also. And there are a couple of buildings in a retention pond that are going on top of the net center.
So, yeah, the center one, I kind of looked at that too, and as Johnny kind of explained, it'd be nice for you guys to actually see these wetlands. We have to call them wetlands because they meet the vegetation in there is predominantly vegetation that lives more often in the wetland area. The soils are hydric, and then there's evidence water is present. But these wetlands are like, the depression is like this. It's just, it's very small. And it's just the yard basically is 2 little lower depression areas. But they do meet the definition of a wetland, so we do have to apply for them and try to avoid them. But in this case, the road is going to be filled. It has to be filled another 3 feet above the existing grade in that area. So to try to get the road in and the side slopes, you end up impacting the wetland and they can't avoid it.
And that was that last picture.
Yeah, yes.
Anything else?
And back to your question too about the setbacks, I mean, I know a lot of them don't meet their setbacks, but I think they could be given some credit for all their native plantings that they're going
No,
to
that's
use.
good.
Yeah,
I'm still not clear on violating the setback for the wetlands though, because what you're saying is that what I read, but then.
yeah, so the township does have you do have a setback ordinance. I was just saying that because they're going to be doing these native plantings and kind of a better situation than currently exists, that maybe it makes sense to do a lesser setback because of that.
I'm sure it hasn't gone to the road commission, though I'm just curious about the two drives at the bottom of the hill. At the intersection of Allegan and Blue Star, that's a concern or question. If they reviewed it or
There's only two roads, there's two driveways cut in there. There's one leading to the house and one leading to the outbuilding.
something. Okay, but there's.
And those are
one
really
that's-
much aligned, those are really much aligned with where we're going.
And they're both one way, so one's in, one's out. Correct. And those will be built to Allegheny County Road Commission standards. They
Sure.
have to require you or allow you access.
I don't see it being a problem year round, but in the summer, that Blue Star, people really, they don't stop, they just keep going. I just, it's a concern. I guess that's really, and a lot of information here tonight, I wasn't expecting. So.
Mr. Manning?
Yeah, just two quick things. Just picking on Commissioner Brown's comment, if there's a 0-foot setback from a wetland, how can you do construction without infringing on that wetland that's adjacent to it? How can you dig a foundation for a crawl space where there's 0 feet?
Yeah, so I don't know if there's 0 feet, we do have the retaining wall.
Well, there's some with the retaining wall, so you're basically right up against the wetland.
Sure.
So that's a question to be addressed. The second question is, if you were implementing the parallel plan, wouldn't you need a lift station for the sewer? Isn't that something that's required, whatever is put on that property, unless you went to, building 4 homes with septic fields?
So I'm gonna say what I think. I don't know how this all agreement is all set up, but this is private property. You can't force somebody to put a lift station on their property without a whole series of things. This is part of what Johnny's doing. He's saying, I'll give you the land to be able to do this. So
No, but you're
if there's no
missing my
lift
question.
station,
My question
They
is,
would probably.
if you wanted to
put
build
the
32
north
units.
East corner of the circle in the right of way where.
Right, but my question is, if you were building 32 units on that land that is outlined in the parallel plan, wouldn't you have to put in a lift station?
There would have to be a lift station somewhere,
Right.
the township would have to decide where that is, beneficial to put.
Okay,
Yeah, so a lot of times lift stations don't have to be on our property.
sure. But one would have to be put in if you're building 32
It
units.
doesn't have to be on this 9.1 acres.
Okay,
It could be a quarter mile away.
okay.
It could be on the other side of the road.
Yeah, when Tyler was doing some initial work, there was also thought of tying into the lift station that was off Maple Street to get to this. So that is an operating lift station that could feed this property tomorrow. We chose to say, we have enough land, let's put a new one in, instead of, because it was gonna require that other one to be renovated significantly. And we just said, no, let's just put a brand new product in here, and you don't have to worry about restoring that one on Maple Street. So in terms of the parallel plan, yes, it would need a lift station. No, it doesn't have to be on this 9.13 acres, because there is one in the community that could service it. It was going to probably be $5 million to bring it instead of $3 million where we're at.
We're trying to save money with the sewer water running through here for the whole community. That's where I'm really expressing that, that's a huge benefit. By bringing it through this site, dollar wise, and that hits everybody. So.
I can comment on that too. Yeah, like Johnny said, it is possible to serve development elsewhere with a gravity sewer coming from Saugatuck. It's just, it's also very costly and just not the best routing that'd be preferred, but from the parallel plan perspective, it could feasibly serve, just costly.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with everybody else's comment. I don't have to. Ms. Osmond, do you have anything to
No, I
add?
just agree with everybody
Yeah.
else. I think there's.
I do too.
I think
you
we
know,
covered all of it.
The one thing that I noticed on the fire department, and you noticed that on the cul-de-sac about the street parking, is on-street parking that may need to be looked at in regards to, and that's in the fire department documents. Same thing with the wetlands is certainly an issue with me as well. The housing variety, I think we answered that question as long as we have the appropriate documents to verify that. Other than that, I don't know if I really have it. And again, a lot of materials to digest. Okay, so Renee, what's our, we've missed a deadline, right?
Yeah, I mean, our deadline for, and we've been pretty lenient when projects are postponed with deadlines and. You know, I guess I'm feeling like that puts a lot of pressure on staff and even you mentioned, Rob, that the review letters don't come, you know, with enough advance, but we also are getting plans with a lot of advance, right? So, you know, I think if we're gonna have a lot of new stuff to react to and these updates, we need to have them by the end of the week for the May agenda. Otherwise, I think that it's really gonna be difficult, for all of us to do the work we need to do to have the time to review these things.
All right, so therefore, you would have to have all the appropriate documents. Now, I got a lot of paperwork. And I certainly don't want to keep going back to them. So it certainly would be nice if we would, which one are we looking at? Instead of all this back and forth and so forth. By Friday, to get onto the May agenda. If you can't make it by Friday, pushes it to June, correct?
We're not in a rush.
What's that?
We're not in a rush.
Okay.
We would rather do it right.
Okay. All right, so if you can get by May and by Friday and Lene says, okay, we'll go with it. If not, then we're looking at June. All right, so with that, unless I have any other thing else from the commissioner, I'll need a motion to postpone.
I'll make the motion to postpone. And to the May meeting, if the documents are in by Friday, if not, it will go on the June. That way, we'll cover that issue by motion.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Butler to postpone.
I'll support.
And Mr. Manning is support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so you guys know what you need to do? Okay.
I have one more question. Is the public gonna be provided with everything?
We'll have everything in the next packet for the meeting. And then that packet.
Yes, yes, it will. And hopefully we'll have the, everything working and then it'll be up that we
We
can.
probably have to just because.
Do that too.
More does. That's not.
All right, so therefore, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. All right, we have no other new business. On our agenda, next is communications. Any correspondence besides what we have for this, Lene?
Nope, no other correspondence.
Okay, staff, project updates, what's going on with Wood Arrow?
No update on Woodland Arrow.
Okay, how about Blue Star Bend?
They are working on their application for building permit.
Okay, how about our lodging, our?
Saugatuck Lodging is under construction.
Yes, yes, they are.
Yeah, they're
And I'm looking for a retreat.
Singapore retreat, since the last meeting, Leanne and I went out, walked the entire perimeter, verified all of the tree setbacks. They did their tree clearing, they're working on their, site grading. We're still waiting on the Eagle permit for their water. Oh, we got it, okay. Oh, we got it, okay, fresh off the, yeah, so they're gonna be.
Quite a difference over there.
Yeah.
Big difference. I walk my dog.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think, are there any other projects, measures? Was there only four that I? Planning commission, comments, any comments? Okay, I do have one. We have a card here, gratitude and thanks from Morgan.
Oh, no.
And she says, thank you so much for letting you be your recording secretary these past few years. I am grateful for the knowledge and experience. Keep being the best planning commission in the area and keep up the good work. Thank you, Mark. I'm gonna read that to you. Lene, do we have the bylaws done?
Yeah, the bylaws are done. I can get those to.
The next meeting? Okay, thank you. Township report, anything? The report, Tom, besides, the appointment of Mr. Manning?
Well, that was the best part.
Okay.
What was the work? Yeah.
All right, this is the time that we have no other comments. Our second public comment, taking rules apply. Again, we ask the speakers to come up forward 3 minutes, time limit, for an individual 5 minutes for part of the group. Again, this is not a question and answer. The opportunity to voice your opinion. So I will open up public comment.
Okay, Dick Capoletti, Capizzo, and other properties, 3279 is one of them. Boy, in a different world, in a fair world, we'd have that amount of time to rebut, but, we don't. Not tonight, anyway. Silas, if I fire you tomorrow, Silas is gone. Okay, well, if I fire Silas tomorrow, it's because he said that this shouldn't even be on the agenda. And he's from Varnum, and he's Notre Dame educated, and this is all he does in planning commission meetings. And it's on the agenda, and nothing was addressed from his letter. So I'll have to have a serious discussion about his qualifications or what's going on or what's going wrong. But that's not going away. You know, a lot of this, I'm freelancing, so you'll excuse me. It would be nice, and I don't know the mechanisms behind this door, but it would be nice if someone said, hey, at least 20 people are objecting to this and took the time to write or sign a petition or show up, and maybe we should talk about that. Maybe they represent 2,000 people. So again, respectfully ask that you show that respect if you're allowed to, and if you're not allowed to, please reach out and pay me the courtesy of saying that we're not allowed to do any of that. We're not allowed to reply to your comments. We're not allowed to reply to your position. The sewer, I mean, I trust that you guys are smart enough to know that we don't need the sewer. He needs the sewer. And the sewer was talked about with me by Donald DeFranco 4 years ago. And we were doing a sewer. We can do a sewer. So I trust that you guys can, you can think for yourselves on where these benefits are coming from. Children are not moving back here. Kids are not moving back here. This is not affordable housing. My kids are not moving back here because it's not where they want to live. The things aren't happening here. So that kind of stuff, I mean, I hope you read through what that's all about. Affordable housing is what I'm going to propose in an upcoming, is on a site plan that I'm preparing for you in an upcoming meeting. It's the Cobalt Inn that we are drawing up for 20 units with $1,500 max rent for service workers. That's coming, that's affordable house, that's affordable housing. You have to understand, I understand, I'm an outlier here. I've got a piece of property at the corner directly across from his. 10 years it's been vacant. I've got Cobalt Inn, 5 years. There is not a day that goes by I do not get offered to sell that, one of those two pieces of property. Speaking of which, Mr. Walker had a representative call me 6 months ago and say these words, and I quote, "Mr. Walker would like to know if you would like to sell your property." And I said, "My property or my business?" "Your property. He's developing to the south of you." So that doesn't sound to me like someone who was, just trying to do his piece of land for affordable housing. It sounds like somebody who's trying to max out and do a land grab.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else here would like to address the commission?
So Jennifer Novakoski, 3347 Gaslight Lane. I apologize, I wasn't planning on speaking, but I feel like my husband's character was on trial tonight, and it doesn't really have anything to do with this property itself, but I feel like that's important to speak. He did not create a website. We did not create a website. We have a neighbor that happily created a website that he said, "I want to write a letter, but I'm not a letter writer. I'm an AI guy." And he created this somewhat amazing website in like 2 minutes. Said, "Let me know if you want us to take it down." And we said, "That's really amazing. It's not accurate. We're not interested. Take it down." I feel like if we had a website, you all would have seen it. I would have had it on Saugusville, Saugatuck, Douglas Informed. I would have had it sent to all of my neighbors. That's not who we are. And I resent the fact that he stood up here and tried to use all of these reasons that he doesn't like his neighbors to push through something that I think we all, as neighbors, have an opportunity to do. We should be able to question, and that's why we're here, and we're questioning the facts of the process. And I did love our neighbor and did question how that all went down, but my husband has stuck to the facts in all of this, and he's an engineer and that's what he does, and we're all better for it. So and in regards to the affordable housing piece, he did approach us years ago, and I don't trust him. We would have to deal with him. It was not considered affordable. We said, like, show us what it's a no right now. We're open to it, but we need more information. We've worked with John Vanderbeek and having an easement for walking trails and the whole thing that he's doing, and yeah, so we're not those kind of people, but I also, as a neighbor, like, I have the ability to say no. And just because he bought a property that's full of wetlands, like we bought a property that's full of wetlands, and he bought another property full of wetlands, we knew what we were buying, something that maybe sporadically one day would have homes in it. Maybe our kids would just play in it. Maybe we could do something amazing for the town with it. And looked at his properties that was like, wetlands are restrictive and they're protective. They're not preservation. So this keeps, I feel like he just keeps going on about all these wonderful things he's doing and all the reasons why we need to say yes, and he doesn't want to hear no. And the more property that he acquires, the louder it gets on radio shows and news articles and social media. And we're not hearing about the farmhouse. We're not hearing about the landmark trees that he initially started with, the black walnuts and all these amazing things. And now they're just red marks on it. So I think we all, there's more than just the two of us here. This isn't he and I in some political campaign around town. We're allowed to ask questions, and I appreciate, and I'm happy I'm not in your position, but appreciate all that you put into it. And it's a highly dense, like it's like 5 acres, 5, maybe 6 of buildable land with 40 homes in it. That's like 8 homes per acre. So when you put it like that, the wetlands are protected. They're not preservation. We have 28 acres. Half of them are wetlands. So I don't, like, in his map, we could put 120 homes on there. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that for our town. And there are ways, I don't know.
there are ways to do both, but the lift station on our property, like that's how much I just don't like how he's wording things and saying things that are half truths. And then getting mad and defensive and talking to a colleague for a bunch of idiots here, so. I'm sorry for the emotion, thank you. Thank you.
Joe Bogowski, 337 Gaslight Lane. It just to add to the whole affordable housing, I didn't know it was gonna be a star of the show, for single-handedly stopping affordable housing in Saugatuck Township, but I think you guys all know that, and I haven't seen the plan that he passed out, which will love it to be public record would be great. Cause that's what we asked for when he said he had something, he said, yes, send me something, we'll take a look at it, and I never heard from him, and as you guys know, multifamily is not allowed in a parallel plan in R1, and that's what that is, so. That parallel, that doesn't qualify as a parallel plan, so it doesn't, I didn't stop anything, cause it's not possible, just based on your current zoning. In the recent letter from the township attorney. So yeah, it's kind of memory of the history is concerning, but it is what it is, it's not a huge deal as far as to this project, so I was trying to keep the facts to this project, and then I just addressed what Johnny's attorney said too. I've been in construction for 30 years. We saw a roundabout going in. We have property that they'd like to do something with someday. They're building a roundabout, and we said they got a lot of fill. They're going to cut it down 3 feet. Talked with the contractor, which like to haul this 30 yards or 30 or 300 yards instead of to wherever. Got the fill for free, and I learned from Eagle what woodland wetlands are, because I had never run across those. Met with Eagle, I got the citation, met with Eagle out there. Jacob was awesome, I ate pro and learned a lesson. I got it mitigated within 30 days. And yes, it's a 12 pounds of dirt, but it's compliant, and we got a well that's been restored, and yeah, I learned a lesson. It wasn't done out of malice or intentionally, like I think it was portrayed, maybe not said, but portrayed. So just wanted to clarify that. And I really look forward to seeing all the additional information. I appreciate how much you guys have. And thanks for Doug for running for this seat. So I heard somebody say, hey, look what you started on a doozy. Probably not the worst thing the township's seen in the last 10 years as far as planning commission, but I appreciate everybody's service and listening. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Be extremely quick. Joe Airhouse, 3483 Cruisar Highway. And I want to take a couple steps back from this particular thing, but present to you guys that the planning needs to happen for the whole corridor. This is one development. I heard you talk about a bunch of others. The density is just up. The volume is just up. The roadway has to be managed. Maybe slow it down. We have to have pedestrian crosswalks. And I appreciate your comments about their path goes to the development, comes out on the Blue Star, and then what? It goes to the development, comes out on Old Allegan, and then what? Nothing is connected to anything. We have to slow it down. We have to have pedestrian and cyclist crosswalks up and down the whole corridor, from the bridge to exit 41. And as you guys are deciding whether it's 30 or 40 or, which site, it's more volume, more speed, more people, more cars. And we're gonna have more deaths at intersections. So that's all. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, I will close the public comment. Let me add something I forgot. Maybe, should we do anything with the data center and Hamlets? We have those two hanging out there.
Yeah, we do have, the data center stuff. I knew this would be a late meeting, so I didn't put it on the agenda.
Do we think in May, possibly?
Well, I have a special use probably in May as well, so yeah, I would like to get it on the agenda. If anyone wants any special project work, I'm happy to send the draft from Algoma Township And then we've had public comment tonight about the data center ordinance as well. If anyone wants to work on that, you're willing to. The hamlet, I think, we should talk to the township supervisor, but my understanding is we're gonna be looking at that in conjunction with future master plan update.
Okay, so we can just keep it, look at it every once in a while, but that's basically on hold.
Yeah.
Okay,
How would this site is part of the designated proposed hamlet, how would this fit that?
That's a good question. I'm not prepared to answer that right now, but I can.
No, not now, but it's been in the back of my, in fact, when they came to us in January. it's when it came back.
Okay, yeah.
could be a discussion.
Sure.
Okay, is there anything else?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Mr. Butler. Second.
Support.
Okay, Mr. Manning. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, audience, for joining us.
You can always count on that one.
Renee, I will help with anything you want help with, although I don't know if you want an attorney to be looking at,
Okay.
things, but any, whatever you need help with.
Oh, yeah, I think, I haven't done that yet, so. Do we have two copies of that?
We just need to keep it on.